welcome to Community Church Unitarian Universalist. For those of you who left your glasses at home this morning, I am not Jim O'Neill. I am Michelle Firestone. More on that a little later. Community Church is a progressive, open-minded, and inclusive religious community. We welcome all who are on a spiritual search for truth and meaning. Ours is a faith in action as we do the work of social justice and elevate compassion in our quest to live ethically, recognizing the inherent worth and dignity of every being. We have a few announcements this morning before I introduce our speaker this morning.
June the 2nd, we are having an in-gathering of new members here during the service. We're thrilled about this. If by any chance you're interested in joining and have not, especially you out there in TV land, or YouTube land, I guess, if you would contact me, revjluck@gmail.com, we'll see what we can arrange. We'd love to have each one of you, and I have to, as membership, have to welcome faces that I see here today that I've seen before, and I'm so glad you're here. There's some new faces, and I wish everybody, including the long-term members, had on their name tags so that we could all know each other. So let's work on that.
This is an announcement from our board president, Marcia Jan. Next Sunday, June 2nd, we will have a congregational meeting immediately following the 11 o'clock service. We will be electing our board members for the 2024-2025 year, and we'll discuss some important issues. The agenda is on the bulletin board in the fellowship hall. Please make plans to attend. And on that note, we are looking for, there are a couple of people who cannot be here next Sunday for the meeting. And we want to Zoom so that they can watch the meeting or watch it later. If there is anybody who is good at Zoom and is willing to take on that task of doing that during our meeting after the service next Sunday, please see me after today's service. I would greatly appreciate your help. Also, please join us in 2 weeks on June 9th after church when organizers from Together New Orleans will be here to help us conduct a listening campaign. This announcement's in your weekly newsletter, but I just want to make sure it's highlighted here. We want to know what's going on with each and every one of you. We want to know what keeps you up at night. We want to know what's important to you in your personal life. Several of our church members have done training for this event. It's a powerful process, and we want to hear from everyone. Lunch will be provided, so don't worry, you won't go hungry after church. And if you're unable to attend on June 9th, we will be following up with each person in the weeks to come individually. Also, I just want to remind everybody, please join us for a vegetarian potluck today after the service. Even if you didn't bring anything, you are welcome to come and eat lunch with us and have fellowship. Our speaker this morning is Pennie Nichols. Pennie has always been in the middle of a dozen projects, my kind of person. Gardening, canning, jewelry and mosaics, sewing and costume making, whipping up cookies and lotions, photo shooting and photo shopping. Making stuff is how she's wired. It's no surprise that she raised her hand to join the preacher pack at the Unitarian Church of Baton Rouge when Reverend Nathan offered the opportunity. Most of her creative time is spent writing, and a sermon seemed like the perfect writing prompt. She has been a friend and member of the Unitarian Church of Baton Rouge since 1996, where she has volunteered in the RE program and is on the membership, generosity, and communication teams. Pennie who was raised in the Southern Baptist tradition, and her Lebanese husband, who was raised Muslim, sought out the Unitarian Church when their 3 children were young and began coming home from school and asking, "What are we?" because their classmates wanted to know. Pennie joined the church for her family, but she stayed there because she finally found a place where questions were welcome and answers were allowed to be diverse. Please join in the reading of our land acknowledgement on the back of your order of service. We acknowledge and pay tribute to the original inhabitants of this land. The city of New Orleans is a continuation of an indigenous trade hub on the Mississippi River, known for thousands of years as Volancha. Tribes that have lived on this land include the Caddo, the Natchez, the Choctaw, Chitimacha, Homa, Tunica, Biloxi, and Atacapa-Ishak, among others. We recognize that as a result of broken treaties and involuntary removals, Native Americans were often forced from their lands. We remember and pay respect to the communities impacted by these actions. Native peoples have lived on this land since time immemorial, and the resilient voices of Native Americans remain an inseparable part of our local culture. With gratitude and honor, we acknowledge the indigenous nations that have lived and continue to thrive here.
Good morning. Good morning. This invocation is from Traveling Mercies, Some Thoughts on Grace by Anne Lamott. I do not understand the mystery of grace, only that it meets us where we are and does not leave us where it found us.
Please join us in singing the words of our chalice lighting. We are not doing the doxology this morning.
This reading is from Luke 15, 22 to 30. And he said, there was a man who had 2 sons, and the younger of them said to his father, Father, give me the share of property that is coming to me. And he divided his property between them. Not many days later, the younger son gathered all he had and took a journey into a far country, and there he squandered his property in reckless living. And when he had spent everything, a severe famine arose in that country, and he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out to one of the citizens of that country, who sent him into his fields to feed pigs. And he was longing to be fed with the pods that the pigs ate, and no one gave him anything. But when he came to himself, he said, how many of my father's hired servants have more than enough bread, but I perish here with hunger? I will arise and go to my father, and I will say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you, and I no longer am worthy to be called your son. Treat me as one of your servants. And he arose and came to his father, but while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and felt compassion, and ran and embraced and kissed him. And the son said to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. But the father said to his servants, bring quickly the best robe and put it on him, and put a ring on his hand and shoes on his feet, and bring the fattened calf and kill it, and let us eat and celebrate. For this my son was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found. And they began to celebrate. Now his older son was in the field. And as he came and drew near to the house, he heard music and dancing. And he called one of the servants and asked what these things meant. And he said to him, your brother has come, and your father has killed the fattened calf, because he has received him back and sound. But he was angry and refused to go. His father came out and entreated him. But he answered his father, look, these many years I have served you, and I never disobeyed your command, yet you never gave me a young goat that I might celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours came, who has devoured your property with prostitutes, you killed the fattened calf for him.
Now is our sacred time of joys and sorrows. If you're online, you may write your joys and sorrows in the comments section to be read aloud. And in person, you may write them on one of the cards being passed out by our readers. Please remain seated for hymn number 170, We Are Gentle, Angry People. From Jada, my aunt had a cancerous tumor removed from her kidney. From Alan, on Memorial Day, let's remember the many survivors of war who came home damaged physically, psychologically, or socially. Amen. Vera has been in the hospital with an infection. She's been in there for a couple of days, IV antibiotics, and hopefully she's coming home today. In the meantime, Jim has COVID. Just found out he has COVID. So please keep them in your thoughts, maybe send a card or a text or phone call. And we light 2 more candles, one for the joys still bubbling up, too new to share, and one for the sorrows that we cannot yet put into words. Know that we hold you in our hearts.
I'm Pennie Nichols, a friend and then member of Unitarian Church of Baton Rouge for over 25 years, and recently a member of the Preacher Pack. The Preacher Pack was asked to identify the story, biblical or otherwise, that troubles us, then write a sermon about it, which we would possibly deliver during our minister's sabbatical. The Prodigal Son is my story. I was about 6 years old when I had my first UU moment in a Baptist church. The other children and I sat quietly in tiny chairs around a short table at Plainview Baptist Church as the Sunday school teacher read the Prodigal Son lesson from her lesson book. I definitely felt the older sibling, the one who sat in the front row in class, eager to please, eager to learn, the first to raise her hand and ask a question. Wait, what? I asked after the lesson reading, then flooded the little classroom with my big questions. Our teacher, clearly flustered, suggested I stop asking questions and just listen. But I didn't listen. For decades, I chewed on that story. Where are the consequences? What kind of lesson are we teaching? Sure, run off and squander everything. And don't worry, we'll take you right back. I get it, the forgiveness bit. But do we have to slaughter the fattened calf and throw a big party for the reckless, selfish ones? I was the older son, the older child in the story, standing in dismay telling my parent, "You never threw a big party for me. You never slaughtered the fat calf to celebrate what a good girl I am." Wow. Saying those words that seared into my brain at 6 and festered there for over 5 decades, saying those words out loud all these decades later is cringy. Is it me? Or does the older son sound like a whiny goody-two-shoes, overachiever, teacher's pet that didn't get her way? The elder son whining, "Yet you never gave me a young goat," has been so loud and resonant in my head that the prodigal son's preamble before his return was lost on my 6-year-old heart and continued to be lost on me at 64. This is the prodigal child's preamble, their words to their father when they came home, according to Luke. How many of my father's hired servants have more than enough bread, but I perish here with hunger? I will arise and go to my father, and I will say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Treat me as one of your hired servants.
Please remain seated for the offertory number 95. There is more love somewhere. It's 95. There's more love somewhere.
are we in the story? I try to find myself in any story I read or watch. And before I go deeper into my thoughts with this story, I want to break down some of the parts, because I think we all look for ourselves in the story. Some of you, like me, immediately identified with the older brother. Some of you are staring uneasily at me because you are the prodigal daughter sitting before the sibling who refused to attend your homecoming. Or maybe you're the parent whose love has been tested and stretched by both the child who squandered her inheritance and the child who stands outside the party demanding justice. Some of you, I'm sure, can't find yourself in this story at all for any number of reasons. You might be the child of a different kind of parent, one who couldn't open their heart to a reliable, hardworking child, much less a child begging for help after squandering everything. Maybe you are that parent who lost their way and have returned with an ache for redemption and to restore the kind of love that can hold and love your children. We all need grace. We all deserve grace. Thich Nhat Hanh wrote, "Our thoughts and actions should express our mind of compassion, even when the person says and does things that are not easy to accept. We practice this like this until we see clearly that our love does not depend on the other person, apologizing or being lovable. Then we know our mind of compassion is firm and authentic." Wherever you find yourself, inside or outside this story, I stand before all of you with a mind of compassion and hope that something in my struggle that I share today will shine a light on your path, will help you find your way home to love, will help you find the grace you deserve. I'm going to share a centering prayer that I do every morning. It's a run through the chakras, if you will. I'm usually do it in bare feet and eyes closed. So we're going to go, and you can repeat after me. We're going to go from the top to the bottom, up and down into the earth again. Illuminate my spirit. Repeat after me.
Illuminate my spirit.
Clear my vision.
Clear my vision.
Open my voice.
Open my voice.
Fill my heart.
Fill my heart.
Empower my intuition.
Empower my intuition.
Expand my words.
Expand my words.
Connect my body.
Connect my body.
Back up again. We are connected.
We are connected.
We are expanding.
We are expanding.
We are empowered.
We are empowered.
We are overflowing.
We are overflowing.
We are open.
We are open.
We are clear.
We are clear.
We are illuminated.
We are illuminated.
And back down into the earth. Illumination.
Illumination.
Clarity.
Clarity.
Flow.
Flow.
Power.
Power.
Expansion.
Expansion.
Connection.
Connection.
Amen. Ashe. Aho. And may it be so. I'm not ready for this party. Instead of the parable of two brothers, lost son, loving father, how about two sisters, lost daughter, loving mother? Or less removed binary from the parable equation, two siblings, lost child, forgiving parent. No matter how I bent the gender of this parable, I was still the oldest child. From the time I first learned the story, the humility of the prodigal child as they returned to their home was lost on me. My ears were ringing loud with anger, and I wanted justice. I remember feeling set up and betrayed by Shakespeare when I read The Taming of the Shrew. This story is fodder for a whole series of sermons, and perhaps a few movements around socio-gender topics, but I'll focus on my 16-year-old reaction to it. As I began reading the play, I was so happy with the good sister, who happened to be blonde like me. But Shakespeare tricked me In the end, the good daughter was the jerk. Kind of like the third of 3 parables that Jesus told the Pharisees tricked me. The character from the parable that I found myself in became the jerk. In both stories, I easily and readily identified with the responsible child who didn't need taming, the good child who stayed to work in the fields, the virtuous child the parent could count on. I stepped into those stories with my righteousness strapped on, but the takeaway in both stories left me nostril deep in self-righteous stink. What was even happening? Apparently, I am still sorting it out. All these decades later, when our minister tasked the preacher Pat with naming a story that bothered us, my answer was swift and unwavering: the Prodigal Son. This is a reading from Unnatural Grace by Reverend Dr. John T. Morehouse. All of us have been betrayed by someone, a parent, a child, a partner, a colleague, a community. We want to make it right. Sometimes we want revenge, and we always want justice. We want justice or forgiveness. I don't think the choice is so stark. We have some justice and some forgiveness, but no justice is possible without some forgiveness. Forgiveness isn't a natural grace. It is not always what we expect that matters most, but how our hearts are made right, our expectations, that we can move on in love. That is the meaning of grace for me. Whose shoes are these? I get it. I always understood that this parable is about forgiveness, love, and redemption. I believe in forgiveness, and I think I'm pretty good at it. But something about the fat calf in the party continues to eat at me. As I worked on this sermon, the older child's shoes became more and more uncomfortable. What if I had put myself in the wrong shoes? What if I'm not the daughter who stayed behind? Writing this sermon gave me a chance to try on different shoes, prompted me to ask more questions. What if I'm the prodigal child of the parable? Maybe I'm not the goody-two-shoes daughter who stayed behind, ingesting all the Sunday school stories without question. I'm the daughter who asked questions and left. When I left that Sunday school classroom in 1965, I was taking my first step away from my family's religious tradition. After I decidedly separated myself at 18, I never returned to my parents' faith. In their eyes, I squandered my religious inheritance. Yet I always knew I could count on returning to their fold, to a love that would hold me, even if I had taken a path that allowed me to question and explore in ways they didn't agree with or understand. The more I tried on the shoes of the prodigal son, the better they seemed to fit. But wait, we had identified 3 primary characters in this parable. What if I'm the parent in the story? The parent who loves all of her children with just as much compassion for my wild child as I have for my steady and reliable child. The father's shoes fit me just fine too. What if I'm all 3 characters at once? Is that even possible? It took me decades, but one of the things that I learned to parse out as a writer are the voices in my head. Critical Carla and doubtful Debbie can become loud and discouraging. They are full of self-righteousness and they think they're protecting me from embarrassment, from failing. I can't kick them out of my head or kill them off. They're part of me. But after decades, I've learned I can manage them, send them to the back seat, and allow eager Agnes and intuitive Inez to lead the journey. It's a stretch, but this can also be a metaphor for the voices in our heads. The logical, cranky ego that stays in the fields must stay safe. And the intuitive, fun-loving creator that seeks adventure must explore. Caught in the middle is the parent. Integral, authentic, who must find the balance between living safely and living fully. What if the parable is also about the balance? About the dangers of imbalance? About the regrets of imbalance? I keep scratching at this parable, and you know what? The siblings have more in common than a parent. The wild child who returns with her tail tucked and humbly asks to live like her parent's servant has regrets. She regrets the choices she made, the selfishness, the squandering. Guess who else has regrets? The obedient child who stayed behind. All right, stand as you are willing and able for hymn number 6, just as long as I have breath. Grace. The obedient child didn't question. Self-effacing, she stayed to tend the fields and help her parent. What are her regrets? She didn't take any chances. She didn't take an adventure or live for herself. But there will be more things to regret, because her so-called virtues whipped up the stink of her self-righteousness when she refused to celebrate her siblings' homecoming. Preparing a sermon on this parable led me to some unexpected places. Forgiveness and love, sure, take that lesson home. But when you scratch at the story, see the different shoes, and explore characters with compassion, you might find yourself in all of them. You'll see the flaws in them and in yourself, and with a mind of compassion, you might find the grace of love, the grace of firm and authentic love. We're all the son who stayed behind, and the son who left to squander his inheritance. We can find bits of ourselves in both the parent and the child. Why is it important to try on all the shoes, to look for ourselves in all the characters? Because there we find our connections. Because by trying on the shoes, we learn to replace self-righteous anger with compassion. Because when we see all the characters, we're more inclined to have a firm and authentic mind of compassion, love, and forgiveness. Even when they return home with a stink of pigs and prostitutes on their clothing, even if they stay outside the party stewing in self-righteous anger. In conclusion, may we move through these last days of spring and the swelter that announces summer with open hearts, abundance of spirit, compassion and grace, even when it's uncomfortable.
Please join me in the words of chalice extinguishing. We extinguish the chalice here, that it may come gently in our hearts. May it light your path as you leave this place. May it guide your way until we are together again. And you can remain seated while the choir has a special treat for us. I'm going to lift my sister up.
Sister, she is
today's service of worth giving and worship. We hope you found something of value for you, and we hope that you'll choose to add your strength to ours in the coming Sundays. Please join us in the fellowship hall for coffee, tea, refreshments, and lunch if you choose to stay.
Oh,